Hello everyone, my name is Jason Place. I'm the head storyteller for Septa the Hidden Flame, the One World by Night Garrow game in Providence, Rhode Island. Also Tides of Power, which is the mage side, and I am currently the mage court. Now that the bona fides are out of the way, this is just a quick little tutorial for people who aren't familiar with Grapevine and some of its intricacies. So, just wanted to give people an idea of what you can do and how you can use the tool more effectively. The first thing I want to go over is just basically how Grapevine is structured. Grapevine is installation specific, and by that I mean that the menu files, the customizations that you make, and so on and so forth are going to be specific to the computer that you're on. Not all of those are actually stored in the game's database, so while you can share out the database file and access that from another computer, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going to come with it. The different file types that you have, I'm sure most of you are familiar with gex files. They're just the basic exchange, information exchange that lets you move things between different databases. You have the menu files, which are GVM. We'll be going over those in a second, but basically those hold all the structural information about how Grapevine stores its options, basically. GV3 are the databases, and obviously the executable file. You also have the templates, which if you go in here, there are three formats, HTML, RTF, and text. I'll be doing another video at some other point about doing custom templates, but if you need to get into those are here. So as I said, all of that is stored locally on your computer, so if you copy the GV3 file, keep in mind that you're not actually moving over all of your customizations. So, that being said, if we go into the Grapevine here, it's just a little quick demonstration that I made, database. The first thing to look at is you go to Game Information, and go to General Settings. It will actually tell you what Grapevine menu file you're using. That can be changed. You can only use one menu file at a time. This is important because you can't just add in menu files, you actually have to merge them into yours. We'll get back into that in a second. So, if you want to menu customization, you go to the menu editor there. It's the little ear green stuff behind it. And you see all the menus in Grapevine. Those are just the generals, and you can obviously go to the genre-specific ones. The way these are structured is fairly simple. First thing to look at, all menus have menu attributes, which is obviously their name, what category they go into, alphabetized, whether or not abilities, well, in this case abilities, but items in the menu will be alphabetized when they're listed. Otherwise, they're presented in a specific order. Disciplines, for example, are a good example of where they're presented in a specific order as opposed to being alphabetized. Negative, add note with item required are fairly self-explanatory. Display is simple as basically just the name. Cost to note adds the cost of the ability with a note afterwards. Cost only displays only the cost. You'll see a lot in merits and flaws. And note only, add note to the end of it. You'll see that also in disciplines and similar things a lot, where the power will have basic, intermediate, advanced afterwards. So when we actually get into the menus, you'll see they're listed here as individual items. Animal Ken, for example, is the ability. The cost is 1. You can put in a note if you want. Abilities generally don't. And that's the standard way of presenting information for selection inside a Grapevine menu. Now, to make things a little bit more tricky, you can have submenus. So, for example, martial arts. Well, martial arts has a bunch of different permutations to it. So if we go into it, you'll notice that the menu attributes, sorry, let me get back to abilities. The martial art actually is a submenu link. That means martial arts is actually its own menu, but within the abilities menu there's a link to go to it. So if you wanted to create a submenu link, I would go new submenu link. And for some reason in abilities, I want to go to the Path of Blood, because I think everyone should be able to get the Path of Blood as an ability. And we would go in here, and I believe it's in Thaumaturgy somewhere, or nope, it's in Path of Blood. Well, you get the idea. Say I decided to make it Yang Prana instead. Now, if I exit the menu here, it'll ask me to save, obviously save. If I go to this character here, go into abilities, you'll notice down near the end there's Yang Prana. If I open that up, I'll see all the Yang Prana items there. Obviously this can be done with a bunch of different things. I've done it with crafts, for example, martial arts. It's good for those abilities that require some sort of specialization or focus, and overarching abilities that are headers, so to speak. The other item you'll see is menu inclusions. So for example, let's go to Changeling menus here. Now obviously Changelings mostly have the same abilities as everyone else, they just have a few extras. So instead of duplicating the entire list, they have what's called a menu inclusion, where it just lists them in line with all the other abilities and it adds in these extra ones. So let's say if I wanted to include in Changeling abilities a new menu inclusion, so include menu, and I want to, for some reason, have Move of the Mind inside the Changeling abilities. Exit, save it, and now if I go here, you'll notice that inside the Changeling abilities I actually have the Move of the Mind items. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're doing menu editing, let's say I wanted to add a new ability, you would go to new menu item. Make sure that you are careful with how you type things, because it has a nasty habit of bouncing away. So for example, if I typed in jogging as an ability, unless you type it right then and you click somewhere else, all of a sudden you'll end up with a bunch of new menu items littering your menus, which is just a pain in the butt. Not fun. So, the last thing with menus, if you do a bunch of customization that you want to share with someone, you go into the menu editor, go into file information. Here's where you can actually select what menu file you're using. You would use load menu to do that. Save menu obviously saves it in place. Save menu as, you can save a file. This is where you'd be able to save a file, name it whatever you want, and send it to your friend who also runs a game. When he gets that file, what he's going to do is hit merge or update menu, select the menu. So for example here, select the Dark Ages menu, and you have two options to merge. The first is an aggressive merge, which, as explained there, basically means that the file that you're loading up is going to win any conflicts. So if I had just added in a new menu for, let's say, Koldunic Sorcery, because the default Koldunic Sorcery only has Way of Sorrow. So I went through the trouble of adding all the others in, and I want to share that with my friends. Aggressive merge would mean that he already had Koldunic Sorcery menu items. They would essentially be wiped out as my Koldunic Sorcery menu was loaded in. On the other hand, no would mean that any changes from the incoming file are essentially lost if there's already an item in the database. So same situation, trying to import Koldunic Sorcery, I hit no. If there's already Koldunic Sorcery items inside the database, then the database wins and changes are made. Most of the time, you're going to want to use a conservative merge, so you'll hit no. What that'll do is that if you like your menus the way they are. It's not going to change anything. It's just going to bring in new items from the menu that you're importing. That's about it for menu management, and we'll pick up with some other stuff in another video.